Are you interested in purchasing a replica diecast similar to the one that Todd Kidd used to win this year's Ajax 200, the one that defending champion Cameron Atwood used to win the first night race at Disney, the one that Todd Kidd used to win his 10th milestone Ajax Cup victory at Belltown, or the one that Laquon Scransen used to win under the lights in the Ajax All-Star race? Well, if you are, you're in luck. Head on over to Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales and use coupon code ASCA on any orders $20 or more to acquire free shipping at checkout.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the ASCA Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Charles Fallon, back in here for another edition, here to recap all the action that just went down at the Computer Motor Speedway in the Apple 225, the penultimate eve round of the campaign for the Ajax Cup Series, and recapping Laquon Scransen's dominant victory and his championship statement, basically trying to strengthen his championship bid and looking forward to the penultimate round of the season at West Virginia this upcoming weekend, and covering all that, and we'll see if Diego Arquidi can lock down a championship and who gets the inside track to the Craftsman Series title in their race at Advocare Speed Park. So a lot of action, a lot of things to preview. We also got a huge silly season storyline to cover as well with Brynn Rennerd. The Brynn Rennerd sweepstakes are over, and we have the winning team of all that. So yeah, lots of stuff to cover. I apologize if I sound a little bit different today. Relearning how to pronounce S's now that I have aligners in my mouth. So yeah, things might sound a little bit different today, but we're gonna power through it. So hopefully it's not too bad. But nonetheless, before we get into any of the action, we gotta shout out the ASA's premier partners, Rowdy Energy. You already know. Click the second to top link in bio. Of course, top link is still ASCA most popular driver voting that is open until the checker flag drops in the Ajax season finale on June 19th. Somewhere around, I would say 10 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, get your votes in while you can. But of course, Rowdy Energy first. Go check them out at Circle B Diecast Plan B Sales. Use coupon code ASCA for free shipping on any orders $20 or more inside the US, of course. So shout out to the sports premier partners, Rowdy Energy and Circle B Diecast. And yeah, let's get into it. So first off, the big story, obviously, of the weekend is Laquon Scransen. This kid is just on another level right now. I mean, he has been on another level since he entered the ASCA and what he did in the Craftsman Series way back when in 2021 as an 18-year-old rookie. And him winning a championship as a rookie in 3 races, that's unheard of. It really is. I know Devin Smith almost won the title as a rookie, the previous year, won 4 races, but he was 21 that season. So he had a bit more experience under his belt. Scransen, 18 years old, still a teenager, um, just burst onto the scene out of nowhere for a team at Dexter Energy Motorsports that finished dead last in points with Sylvester Lyons the year prior. So he takes them from dead last to the top, and now the 11 is one of the most flagship entries in the series, one of the most coveted rides you can have, as Marcus Edwards goes for the title this year up against Graham Darty and Kyle Ward. But yeah, he goes and wins the championship. Obviously goes and wins Rookie of the Year over Lucas Sambert in 2022. That really wasn't much of a surprise. It's kind of due to the equipment disparity for us Motorsports in their maiden season. But what is a surprise is Scransen's performance. Like, he led 51 laps at the Stone Yard, qualified, I believe, on the front row in like 6 different races or something crazy like that. 2 top 5, 6 top 10s, was like 16th in the final standing. So he had a pretty solid rookie year in Dexter Andrews Motorsports equipment, all things considered. Especially considering Ryan Braun, a Cup Series veteran, finished like 17th or 18th in the standings the year prior. So he steps in, he does that, and mind you, this is all last minute. After Caleb Henderson Jr.'s shock retirement, Scranton randomly gets promoted to that car about a month before the season starts. He thought he was going to be racing Craftsman, another season of Craftsman that year, but Henderson Jr. retires, Scranton gets the promotion, and as I say, the rest is history. He has a solid rookie season. Had a couple embarrassing moments like the one at Michigan. But for the most part, really solid rookie season, takes some rookie of the year. But then the sophomore campaign, no sophomore slump in sight. He continues to improve and improve and improve. And you can tell, he's starting to get more experience under his belt and really starting to kind of take hold as showing off some of that true potential. Like he got off to a really rough start to the season. I think he was like 22nd in points after the first three races, but after that he really started to bounce back and turn things around. I know he's going to pull at his home track and led the opening laps there, and then finally towards the end of the season he breaks through. He breaks through at Computer Motor Speedway by inadvertently dumping Diego Urquidy for the race win. Some call it a racing deal, some call it dirty. I'll let you decide what your opinion on that incident is. But Scranton won the race nonetheless. That was his first career win, the first win for Dexter Andrews Motorsports since 2011 at the Cup level. And not only did he win that race, no, he followed it up by making an incredible last lap move on Chris Barrymore to win the following week in the Fast and All 200. So he finishes ninth in points at the end of the day, or something like that. Really high in the standings. And mind you, he's a 20-year-old kid, sophomore driver for a team that hadn't won a race since 2011. Used to be a laughing stock of the sport. And now we've seen him take another huge step up at just the age of 21, now in his third season. And the numbers this year just been astonishing. Third in points, 508 laps led, tied for the league lead in wins. Obviously, nearly doubled the laps led of any other driver this season. And it's just 5 wins now in his last 16 races, from his first win in the Apple 225 last year to his dominant victory in the Apple 225 this year. The first driver to go back to back or even win this race multiple times in general. The kid's a special talent, man. He really is. And it seems like he's gotten the off track shenanigans kind of figured out. We haven't really heard much about that since his arrest. So I'm assuming he's been behaving well, and hopefully, we can keep that up. We would love to see him in the 42 long term. He has the potential to break records at this point. He's won more races at 21 years of age than Diego Urquidy, the Randall Woods types. And if he can stay in this car, stay with this team, Dexter Andrews Motorsports has the potential to really go down as the team to beat for the rest of the decade, considering they're calling up Marcus Edwards, another he is the same age as Scranton, another guy with a ton of potential, has really started to figure things out at the Craftsman level with a couple of wins throughout his career. That Scranton and Edwards pairing could be a dangerous duo atop the sport for the next half decade or so. So Laquon Scransen is just absolutely ridiculous. He is by far, I would say, the most talented young driver this sport has ever seen. He has such an inspirational story with the top teams, not really wanting to give him a shot because, obviously all the off track baggage that he had with his numerous arrests and this and that, all this sort of controversy. But Dexter Andrews Motorsports, they believed in him. Each time he's gotten into trouble, they bailed him out. They've given him chance after chance after chance, and now they're finally starting to see the fruits of their labor. So it's a truly special story for the kid from Compton to now be one of the biggest stars, if not the biggest young star in the sport right now. And the sky is the limit for him. It really is. The sky is the limit for Laquon Scransen. So, yeah, hopefully he can keep up this streak of staying out of trouble. I really want to see him in the sport long term because I want to see a lot of records broken over the course of the next decade or so. Because he really does have the potential to do that. We've already seen the 5 wins in the last 16 starts. That's stuff that you see guys like Diego Urquidy and Randall Woods and Greg Ely, Todd Kidd, these types. That's what you would see out of them. Cameron Atwood, we just saw it from him last year. But to see it from a kid that's only 21 years old in just his third year, that's surreal, man. It really is surreal, especially when you consider that guys like a Todd Kidd had even won a race until his fourth season when he was 23, and Scranton's got 5 wins at 21. So absolutely insane what he has done as of late, and just salute to him and that team. Another dominant performance in the Apple 225, and like I said, he's the only driver I think that can dethrone Diego for this championship. Honestly, that is the only driver I can see that can do it, really, at this point. So, yeah, we'll see if he's able to do so. He's gonna need a lot of help. He's gonna have to go out and dominate West Virginia as well. But, we're gonna have to see. So it's gonna be an interesting one, to say the least. But moving on to, speaking of Diego Urquidy, he has a golden opportunity to clinch the championship this week at West Virginia, penultimate round of the season. And here's the clinching scenarios basically. He's got a 27-point cushion over Shane Park, 30-point cushion over Laquon Scransen, and 39-point cushion over Todd Kidd. Todd Kidd at this point is all but eliminated. Even if Todd Kidd wins, Diego just has to finish 11th or better or 12th or better with laps led. So, that's not really much of a factor. And that's assuming Kidd wins and leads the most laps. So, Urquidy should be able to eliminate Kidd rather easily. But Park and Scranton, it's a bit more tricky. Obviously, like I just said, any finish ahead of those two, and Urquidy's got the title won. However, if Park wins, Diego would have to finish second and lead the most laps to clinch the championship. If Laquon wins, Diego would have to finish second and without any laps led, or third with a lap led. And that's assuming Scranton would win and lead the most laps. If Park wins and leads the most laps, then it's going to a title decider at Belltown next week, no matter what Diego does. But I mean, that's assuming that Diego would finish like 15th or something. If he finishes like second, he'll still have the championship all but clinched. He just has to start the race basically in a air. Like, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's gonna take a miracle for Park or Scranton to really win this championship, and to even keep their hopes alive heading into Belltown next week, they have to win and lead the most laps. That's it. That's all it comes down to at this point. Like, you have to win, you need to lead the most laps, and you need some help from Diego. And the problem for these two is, I think they would have a shot if we were at Belltown, considering Diego's track record with DNFs in the Ajax season finale. I believe he's DNFs out of the last 3 in a row, if I recall correctly. But because he is, I don't know why, he just does not have an affinity for his home track. Like, he has struggled there over the years. Obviously, one of the 2 active circuits that he has never won at. But it's going to take a lot, from these two if they want to get the job done. Basically, that's what it's going to come down to. And the problem is, we're heading to West Virginia, where Diego, ironically enough, has won the last 2 races, and he's won the West Bank 250 twice in 4 years, including last year, obviously. So I would say things are not looking good for, these guys keeping their title hopes alive. But I would say that the dominance that Chevy showed on another very similar track to West Virginia, high speed, aero sensitive track in Computer Motor Speedway, um, through in the Windows 300 and the Apple 225. I think that's certainly a promising sign that Diego is going to be beatable, because Diego did finish sixth and fifth, so he's a bit vulnerable. But for Park and Scranton, I think, has the best shot, considering we just saw what he did at the two races at Computer Mode Speedway, and he finished second at West Virginia earlier in the season. But, it's going to take a lot, considering Diego did win the race there earlier this year as well. And Park, he really struggled at West Virginia earlier in the season, but he ran well at Computer Mode Speedway in the two races here. So it's kind of a toss up. I'm not really too sure who to go with. And we'll, break down who the favorites are to win this race in a bit later on in the show. But I would say there's a pretty good chance Diego locks up the title. Because just betting on a Shane Park to win or a Laquon Scransen win, I do think it's a lot more likely. But I would say that Diego might just finish second, honestly, right behind him, so it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, so I think I would say there's probably a 90% chance that Diego locks up the championship heading into Belltown. Maybe Scranton does win, lead the most laps, and Diego finishes like 10 or something. And then we can talk heading into Belltown whether or not Scranton has a realistic shot. So at the end of the day, we'll see. But I wouldn't get my hopes up too much if I'm a Park or a Scranton or especially a Todd Kidd fan. He's pretty much all but eliminated at this point. In Diego, his consistency this season has been unmatched. 12 top 10 finishes this year, 9 top fives. And this is in 14 races, mind you. We still got 2 more to go. So that number can get to as high as 11 and 14 top fives and top tens, respectively. So, man, it's just been Diego's just kind of been on another level compared to his competitors this season. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Really, that's just what it comes down to. So, um, moving on to a team that has struggled tremendously this season. We've talked about the consistency of a Diego Urquidy and a rise of Chevrolet this year, but all of that has been at the expense of another manufacturer and another team. Toyota and Michael White Racing, winless in 2024. And we're heading to the end of the season now. We got 2 races left, and I think it's panic time, honestly. Like, we head to West Virginia, where we've seen on these high-speed aero tracks, Michael White Racing was god-awful earlier at West Virginia this season. Outside of Braden Bennett, Woods was nowhere. Lester and Ayers definitely were nowhere. Then at Computer Motor Speedway, Woods at least had a somewhat fast car to keep up with the leaders, but the rest of the 3 were nowhere. I mean, Ayers was top 5 in the Windows 300, but then came back here and was running like 15th before he got taken out by Dixon. Lester was nowhere pretty much all race, finished like 9th. So I really concerned, genuinely concerned that we might see the first winless season for Michael White Racing and, more importantly, Toyota at the ASC level since they joined the sport. And if we get that, I think this is a massive code red, especially considering this is not, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018 Michael White Racing, where they were just kind of an afterthought. And if they did win a race, like, wow, that's an upset. Like when Dan Rogers was stealing victories on road courses and plate tracks, you'd be genuinely surprised. No, they have a two-time champion, a 26-time Ajax Cup winner, and Randall Woods. Like, the expectation is to win now, and it's to win every week. They have, a former Windows 300 winner and the oldest driver in the sport, six-time Ajax Cup winner Norm Lester. Expectation for him is to win every week. They have a driver in the sixth season, a Jared Ayers, a two-time Ajax Cup winner. The expectation for him is to win every week. And, for Brayden Bennett, he doesn't quite have that same expectation considering he is just a rookie. And I think he's actually done a pretty solid job this season, all things considered. But, they do expect him to run up front more often than not as well as he tries to gather experience and intel for the future. But this season has just been shocking to me for Michael Wire Racing. Like, it's not even that they're in positions to win and the drivers are getting it done, but it's even more concerning than that they just don't have the speed to keep up with the Chevrolets and the Fords. More specifically, the Chevrolets, I would say, because they have really taken over the season. Even the Fords have struggled to keep up a bit. They've got past champions Ricciardi and Atwood kind of keeping them afloat at this point with their multiple victories, but it's been a Chevrolet type of season, that's for sure, with a new CO11 LE. So there's a couple of different ways that Michael Wire Racing can handle this. Number one is going back to the drawing board and trying to draw up a new design for the Camry to kind of get them back in the hunt, kind of like what Chevrolet did with the Camaro Z01 1LE, and we see the fruits of their labor with that one. But I think number two is the other option that they decided to go with. And that is bring in a big name, big money driver and kind of invest a bunch more money in the team and show that, hey, we want to win. We're going to bring in another veteran presence and we're going to ensure that we win in the future. That another winless season like this, that will not happen again. This is not acceptable. We're not putting up with this. And I think that's part of the reason why they ended up not picking up Norm Lester's team option, was because they were like, hey, this is not acceptable. We need to make a change. We cannot go into next season with the same lineup producing these mediocre results. We need to bring someone in to change the tide, change the culture, change the culture, bring some momentum into this organization once more, bring some positive energy into this organization, because Michael Wire Racing just kind of seems dull, dead. The vibes are just not there for this team right now. Kind of lethargic, honestly. Like, they're just going through the motions. And I think that the signing of Brynn Rennerd to a record contract, breaking the bank to win the Brynn Rennerd sweepstakes, and bringing in a guy that has won 4 Crown Jewel races, I really do think that this is a good move for Michael Wire Racing. And hear me out here. I know. All the detractors are going to say, oh, this is a dude that's going to be 33 years old next season with only 8 career victories. Never won a Cup Series championship, mind you. There's a lot of things that he hasn't done. Never won more than 1 race in a season. He's got a couple winless seasons here and there. He's got a couple of seasons where he's finished, bottom half of the top 10. But I really think that this is just such a solid hire, and in kind of changing the tide and bringing some positive momentum, some positive energy, some pick me up to a team that desperately needed it, some hype, some sex appeal. Winning the Brynn Rennerd sweepstakes, breaking the bank for this guy, $13 million a season, that sends a statement to someone like Randall Woods, who's only making $11 million a season. Like, hey, we're paying this guy more money than you. You want to prove that you're worth more than him? go out and do it on the track. Um, especially for a guy like a Jared Ayers as well, who is, I don't know if he's coming up on a team option season. He may or may not be. I'm not sure how the inner workings of his contract is. I just know it runs through 2026, or maybe there is a team option for 2025. And if there is, that'll certainly put some pep in his step, knowing that, hey, we can ship you right out the door just like we shipped out Norm Muster if you don't pick up your performance. Same thing for Brynn Bennett. We do know he is on an expiring contract. And while I do think that they're going to work on getting a long term deal done, considering his performance this season, um, it's also, kind of a wake up call. Like, hey, if you don't pick it up this season, we got, we are not afraid to go out and bring in a big money free agent to replace you. We are not afraid to promote a Tony Del Valle from Craftsman to replace you. You know, so I think this is it's a big move to energize the organization. And I really do think that it's a really good signing for Michael Y Racing. And I think it's a really good signing for Brynn Rennerd as well. I I have a hard time believing he's going to be the alpha dog number one driver that he may have wanted. But obviously he was not that at Ronnie Woods Motorsports. And if anything, he was the number three at best, behind Todd Kidd and Shane Park. And he had always kind of been in the shadows at Ronnie Woods Motorsports. At least here at Michael I Racing, we know that Randall Woods is getting towards the end of the road. He's going to be 37 years old next season. You question after what could potentially be another winless season in 2024, like, okay, how much longer is this guy going to go on for? Especially if he's not winning races. So, it's very interesting to kind of think about it like that. Like this could be Brynn Rennett's team in another 2 to 3 years once Randall Wood steps down. And they need that veteran presence considering they have some young kids in the pipeline. Like they already got Bennett and Ayers at the cup level, but they have some other young kids in the pipeline like Tony Novell that I mentioned and like a Dustin Adams to potentially mentor them in the future. So I really I like this hire for Michael I Racing. Do I wish that they paid him less money? Of course I do. But I also see why they needed to pay him $13 million because Taylor Motorsports really drove up the asking price to this astronomical level because they thought for sure, hey, we're going to be able to win this with these. Like no one else is going to want to pay Brynn Rennerd, make him the highest paid driver in the sport next season. Taylor Motorsports was like, Michael Y Racing, I should say, was like, not so fast, my friend. We're on it. So, I really like this signing for the team. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Renner does in 2025. I'm really, really interested to see how that pairing works. Him at the 19 team that has had their struggles. They haven't really been the same since finishing fifth in points in 2022. It's been all downhill from there. So, really interested to see how that works out. And that leaves, I believe it's a 10. The 14 is technically still open, although we do believe that Devin Smith is going to return to that ride. It's not 100% confirmed, though, but we do believe that that will be the case. Um, so that leaves a 10, the 14, and then the Taylor Motorsports 77 open for Taylor Motorsports. I just thought that. My God, I am in another dimension today trying to film this. But yeah, I really do think that though Mike Wire Racing made the right decision bringing in such a big name driver like Rennerd. And I think that that's going to help them tremendously try to right this ship for 2025. And we'll see how it works out, but I think they made the right decision with this one, winning the Brynn Rennerd sweepstakes. So that's it for that. And now let's look forward to the penultimate round of the campaign. The Body Armor 125 at Advocare Speed Park and the West Banco 250 at West Virginia Motor Speedway. the second longest Ajax Cup event of the season. Last week was the third longest Ajax Cup event of the season. So, obviously, it's going to be a grueling, long test for these drivers. These drivers, 125 laps on the books. It's going to be tough, man. It's not going to be easy. But, I think that when it comes to the body armor 125, ironically enough, the top two in points had a photo finish in this race last season, just last year, with Graham Doherty coming out on top by inches over Colin Ward, who would obviously going to win the championship that season. Wouldn't be shocked in the slightest to see something very similar to that happen this time around. And Graham Doherty obviously came out, won pole, and won in his first start at Advocator Speed Park. I reckon to believe he'd have to be one of the favorites to do it again this time around. I reckon to believe a Colin Ward, who has shown a knack for these short tracks, I reckon to believe he'll also be up there at the front as well. So Doherty and Ward, I think, will certainly be right up there competing for the race win. Marcus Edwards is a bit more of a question mark. He's kind of mixed on the short tracks. I haven't really heard much of him, especially at Advocare, but part of it could just be down to the old Camaro last season. But he has won at Belltown before, so I definitely think that he could be a factor. Not as much of a factor, though, as a Doherty and Award. I think that Edwards really blew his big opportunity to kind of steal this championship. He blew that last week, and I don't think he's going to get another one of those, especially like I just said, like we just saw the finish between Doherty and Ward here last season. Like that was his golden opportunity to pounce for Edwards, and he blew it. So I think that Doherty and Ward are going to be right about the front. And as for who's going to win, you see me predict this every single time, but there is a reason why. There's a reason why he's leading the points right now. He's got 3 wins on the season. He is the defending Craftsman Series champion. He's got 6 career wins overall. He's getting the promotion to Ronnie Woods Motorsports next season. Colin Ward will win this race. Colin Ward will win this championship. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's going to happen. Just write it down. Write it down. Set it in stone. That's what's going to happen. Colin Ward will win this race, and he will win back-to-back titles. As for the West Banco 250, it's a bit more complicated. You obviously have what Diego Ortiz has done at West Virginia the past 2 races, but I also look at it and I'm like, Laquon Scransen has been really, really good at Computer Motor Speedway, the most recent high-speed aero track that we visited the past 2 races. And West Virginia has surface is wearing. It's not obviously not as worn as Computer Motor Speedway, but it's wearing quite a bit. So I would say that honestly, I really do think that Laquon Scransen should be the favorite, and he is my pick to win. That being said, though, I still think that Diego is going to finish second or third with lap lead to clinch the championship, but Laquon Scransen is my pick to win. Give him back-to-back victories on the campaign again, and what would it be? 6 wins in his last 17 starts, which would be absolutely unheard of. Although 5 wins in his last 16 starts is unheard of, as is at just the age of 21. But I got Scransen winning, and I have Diego finishing third with a lap lead, which would give him the title heading into Belltown. Shane Park, I don't see him being up there. They struggled so much at West Virginia earlier this season that for them to kind of make that ground up, maybe they, look at what Brynn Rennerd did and they steal his setup. I don't know, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting to say the least, and certainly looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good race overall if Laquon doesn't stink up the show too much, but I do think that he wins another race, and I think that Diego wins another championship. this weekend in the new penultimate round at West Virginia, which, by the way, I think is a really good idea. This one beautiful, absolutely gorgeous $1 billion facility, the penultimate race of the season. I think that's a really good call. And it's not going to be as chaotic as it used to be at Ajax Super Speedway, but I also do think that it certainly West Virginia is such a deserving track to host such a crucial race like this. So I'm excited to see it, to say the least. I cannot wait. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of racing, and we'll be back in a week's time to recap all the action and preview the final weekend of the 2024 season. I cannot believe it. We made it this far, and we're almost there. We are 2 weeks away from crowning a champion. Actually, less than 2 weeks, 12 days away from crowning a champion in both the Craftsman and the Cup levels. So appreciate the two of you listening to this for sticking around to my constant lisp the entire time talking with these freaking aligners. And appreciate the ASC's premier partners and Rowdy Energy and Circle B Diecast for all they've done for the sport and the podcast as well. And yeah, that's it for this edition of the ASA Weekly Podcast. This is Charles Fallon signing out. We'll see you to preview all the action from Belltown next week.